At some point, you just have to choose. You have to choose who you're going to become. You have to choose your own standards. You have to choose how you're going to show up for yourself. You have to choose what you're going to prioritize in your life. You have to choose because you have one body, you have one life, you have one mind. If you take anything away from this podcast and you're one of those intellectualizers who wants to consume the information, distill it down into your takeaways and apply it before you continue to consume anything else. Do something with it.
Yeah, if you're going to be an overconsumer rather than a doer, you're going to be a really smart fat person. Welcome to the podcast, y'all.
Hello.
Mav and Kate here.
What's going on?
So today we're going to talk about why you can't stay consistent. If there's a number one bit of feedback I get when I ask a woman, what are you struggling with most? The number one answer is always consistency. I can't be consistent. And so we're going to talk about the consistency piece. What is keeping you from being consistent? And we're going to talk about what happens when women try to do this alone. 99%, right? And so, there's data around this. 95% of people regain their weight back. We're talking dieters here, people who attempt weight loss, regain their weight back after a 3-year period. Okay. By the end of 3 years, 95% of women have regained all their weight back after attempting weight loss. So we're talking about why that is, especially in today's day and age with social media bombarding us and the information overload that a lot of you are dealing with, how to sift through it. And then most importantly, what this looks like for most of you, where to spot it happening, and how to do something different so that you can finally kind of realize what the problem is, get traction, get support, and finally do this thing.
Ka-chow.
So one of the biggest things I hear is like, I don't have motivation, right? I have a motivation problem. I just don't feel motivated to do it. Can you kind of talk about the gap between motivation, intention, sort of why motivation isn't it?
Well, I think we can all experience, or we have experienced periods of our life where we don't feel like doing the things that we know we need to do. Kids and homework is a great example of this. I don't feel like learning. I don't feel like doing schoolwork at home. I don't feel like going to work or getting up in the morning or taking care of my kids or making them lunch or cooking dinner for my spouse. Or there's a lot of things we don't feel like doing, but we do them anyway. And taking care of yourself is no different than that. And I say that because if the ability or the willingness to do something that is difficult for you is dependent upon your feelings, you're never going to be consistent. It's an impossibility. I've been an athlete my entire life, and the majority of the time, I would say, I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like working out. I don't feel like running. I don't feel like strength training. I don't feel like going for a walk in the rain. I don't feel like doing any of that. But I do it because I know that it's what's best for me. It's how I'm going to grow. It's how I'm going to stay healthy for my spouse, for my children, for my family, for my passions, for my quality of life. And so it's recognizing that delayed gratification. It's not about what you feel good doing right now. It's about recognizing that most of the time, the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing.
Yeah, motivation is a very fleeting fuel. Imagine thinking that nitric oxide is going to get you all the way from Florida to California, right? It's fleeting. It'll run out after a couple miles. You can't rely on motivation. It has to be part of who you are. But the problem that we see, and we just talked to our clients about this recently, is people are trying to do way too much that is beyond their window of tolerance. So if you can, go ahead and explain window of tolerance and why that's so important when people are trying to change.
So window of tolerance is oftentimes used in a therapeutic setting, but what we're actually talking about is your ability to stay within a frame of rationality, logic, emotional feeling, so nervous system response, and make conscious decisions that are in your best interest and or the interest of those around you. And so what that means is when you feel overwhelmed, anxious, stressed, lonely, bored, frustrated, angry, any series of emotions, because life throws things at you and we all get stressed and overwhelmed and depleted and anxious and all of those things. It's a part of the human experience. But there's only so much that our nervous system can take of those things before we revert back into old habits, distracting behaviors, vices, maladaptive coping mechanisms. And so what it means to stay inside of that is I can feel this thing. Maybe it's apathy, maybe it's lack of motivation, maybe it's lethargy, fatigue, anxiety, overwhelm, whatever it is that you're experiencing. I can feel this and recognize that there's something that I can do here. I can move through this emotion productively and be logical about my next steps. Okay, you're within that. You can work with what's going on. Whenever somebody steps outside of that, oftentimes we revert back into old habits. We do the thing that we've learned to do in order to escape the emotion that we are not comfortable sitting in. So for some people, this is alcohol or other vices, food for many people. Um, and that's going to continue to actually sabotage the goal that you have, because now you have a conflict of, when I feel good, I can follow through. When I'm at home and I'm organized and I'm structured and everything is going well in my personal life, I can commit to this. But as soon as I get sick, my job gets really, really frustrating. There's stress within my relationship. My kid is acting out. Somebody's sick, you're injured, right? Stress has a response. You can go hypoarousal or hyperarousal, but either way, we all have a stress response. And that inevitably shuts down your prefrontal cortex. It goes offline for a little bit. And then we're reacting to what's happening from an emotional place. And that is not rational, it's not logical. And it's usually a learned either protective mechanism or just a maladaptive trigger that moves you or motivates you to escape the feeling by engaging with something else. And so doing too much too quickly for most people puts them outside of what they can actually work with and be productive towards. And this is why trying to jump onto a program that's very rigid, restrictive, overwhelming, requires an overhaul of your diet or your lifestyle. And now you have to find 4 hours in your day to do all the things that you're supposed to do and meal prep and change your diet, but you also cook for your family and you've got a job that sometimes you're working night shift. Like it's so rigid, it's almost impossible. And yet you convince yourself that in order to lose weight, you have to do these things. And so it's so far outside of what is practical and applicable for you that inevitably you're set yourself up to feel like you're the problem, you're failing, and this goal is impossible. And so we revert back into old patterns of behavior.
Yeah. So we're trying to apply a template that is not at all based on our current reality to try and accomplish this goal. And it works great when life is real even keel and no stressors are present and works great and our marriage is great and kids are just behaving perfectly and nobody's sick. But the second life starts lifing, we fall apart. We see this all the time. And this is also a reason why I hear from a lot of women is this was so much easier in my 20s. I'm like, yeah, no shit. You didn't have kids. You had a different career with less responsibility. Probably if you were married, beginning stages. If you weren't married, that's a whole new dynamic. You have another person to think about. You have their needs, their focuses, their values. And we're physically different in our 30s, 40s, and 50s. I mean, it sounds pretty common sense, but I think people forget that. So when we try to smorgasbord this thing and just make all these dynamic overhauls of our lifestyle, it is beyond our window of tolerance. We fall short. And as Kate said, we feel broken. We feel like failures. When the reality is you were trying to apply a method that's not built for you. A prime example of this, I'm gonna give a personal example, is like I want to play basketball. I want to get back into, playing in a league. And the reality is I'm not physically ready for that yet. I've had a lot of years of not playing basketball. And so when I made this commitment, I came to Kate and I was like, listen, I want to do this. I really enjoy playing basketball, but I have, my knees hurt. I need mobility work. I need agility work. I need strength work that's congruent with being an athlete. And so she built me a program that I'm following now. But this program is built very slowly and very progressively. Because if I were to go out there and try to do a bunch of box jumps and plyometric work with the current state of my knees and mobility, I'd be sidelined and it would be null and void. Instead, I'm having to go back and do these very tedious movements that are not fun to help my knee health, my knee stability, my Achilles and ankle stability, all these things. Point being, if I were to go out there and just start running sprints without having any of this foundational work, I would get injured in a couple days, if not sooner. Probably the first 10 minutes of taking off for a sprint, I'd rupture my shit immediately. So you can't skip over the foundational work that needs to be done. This applies to a body transformation journey. And when you're trying to do this, we have to remember it's not just dieting. It's not just all of a sudden becoming someone who works out. It's about creating a way of living from the foundation up that allows you to do this in a livable way relative to your circumstances, time constraints, and the way you process information and think about this whole thing.
Well, I was going to say something I actually think is really useful just based on the anecdote that you shared is when he started looking at programming, right? He knew he had mobility issues, let's say, like things that needed to be improved. And so he bought a program for mobility, but it wasn't addressing the other things that he would have to train up in order to perform the way that he wants to within the goal that he has. And I say that because a lot of you guys are going to buy a cookie cutter program that you find online. You're going to think this is going to be the thing for me, but it does not consider your ailments, your injury history, what you are competent in, your athletic ability at this point, and it does not orient it towards a specific goal. And so without those things, you're going to have to program hop because even when we looked at other alternatives within the thing that you bought, There was nothing that was customized to athletic performance, right? It was you can get stronger here or you can get more mobile here, right? But it wasn't like, how do I train with my limitations, my ailments, and my injury history with this specific goal in mind and my current athletic ability? That's why I was like, I'm going to have to build you a program because you have elements of each of these things here. You have no agility work whatsoever. And if you want to play basketball, you're going to have to add some of those elements in. And so then it became a structured, phased program because even if I put him on one program to run for the next 6 months, right, inevitably I'm going to be skipping over something or overcompensating for an injury to where he's going to have movement pattern issues. And so it's really starting on the foundational stuff, which for him has been somewhat hard, even though it feels for many of you trivial to start from the basics, but you have to master the basics because everything scales from there.
To further drive this point home, I have my own biases. I am not an objective thinker when it comes to my physical limitations. So I had to go to someone who knows me inside and out, who has observed me, knows my goals, knows what I'm trying to achieve, who could essentially put my blinders on and keep me from overdoing it, because if left to my own devices, I will overdo it every single time. I'd be like, oh, I feel good today. Let's go do some box jumps with a weight vest on in the rain with with an asteroid about to hit. Like I would just go all out. If left to my own devices, I would absolutely injure myself. And I've done so many, many times. The evidence shows me that when Maverick creates his own program, he thinks he's capable of way more than he is, and he goes too fast and he gets hurt, and then he's pissed, and then he gets hopeless. So I had to outsource this to someone who doesn't have those biases, who's an objective third party, who could structure this in a way that it fits me where I'm at and how I could progress safely and effectively without getting injured.
And I think the more important piece in all of this is like, you guys might think that we make this because we run this business, but like, I don't like I could never be a hypocrite, right? One of our goals, one of our values within our company is leading by example. So I'm not going to tell you that you need help if we don't get help, which I do have help when it comes to the performance goals that I have, which are more endurance based at this time in my life. But either way, it's recognizing that we all have blind spots. We all can't see ourselves objectively. We all want to be further ahead than we actually are. And being humble about that and then saying, actually getting support is going to speed up the process. You thinking that you can just force yourself into some mold that wasn't built for you by discipline, willpower, and beating yourself into submission is not the fast path. And many of you logically, you know this, because if those rigid, restrictive, cookie cutter plans were going to work, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. Right? You're here because, and I don't know any woman over 30 who's not dieted at least half a dozen times in her lifetime. And so if any of those series of diets, some of the women in our program have dieted like 20 times.
For 30 years.
On and off, or just on the whole time. Right? And so I say that because there's nothing wrong with getting help. It is the fast path. It may not feel that way, but your ego and your pride saying, I've got to figure this out on my own, or I've got to, see what I can do first. It's like, you're just prolonging the inevitable, and then you're prolonging the actual achievement of the goal. None of us can figure out things that we don't know on our own. This is why we get education. This is why we get support. This is why I've invested close to $100,000 in mentorship over the span of my life. Like, I am not somebody averse to help because I understand that having some oversight, somebody who can hold you accountable, give you insights that you don't have, or teach you things that you don't know, and you would spend so much time questioning yourself about the decisions that you need to make. It just smooths out the process, and you already know that the outcome is inevitable because you have somebody who's competent enough to help you get there. I think that's a really important element of the conversation.
With all this being said, all right, so we've talked about kind of the patterns that we see people in with, thinking you can do this on your own. There's a lot of reasons why you can't, okay? And it's not an intelligence thing. It's not a discipline thing. It's not a willpower thing, I promise you. There is so much information being thrown at you every single day. I hear this on every single call I have. It's like, I don't know where to start because I try one thing and then I hear another voice, another talking head saying that that's stupid and I should try this. So then I jump from this that I've only been doing for a week to that. And meanwhile, the scale is just kind of like doing this, maybe trending upward. So that's frustrating, and then we have the whole cycle that people go through when they're pursuing some kind of change. It basically happens in like 5 phases, right? Phase 1 is like the new program high, the new diet high. I'm going to do this. This is it. This looks really interesting. You do the grocery haul.
The novelty spike.
Yeah, the novelty spike. You do the new plan. That the hope is really high here. I'm going to do it this time, right? It's when we're going
Like
to
the woman in the red dress.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have phase 2 when reality starts to collide. Okay, that's when the hunger cues start to kick in. That's when the work stress hits. We realize that life isn't as predictable as this plan or program needs it to be. Because most programs, most coaching, most whatever, they box you in to like do this or else. Follow these steps. This is how you get there. Meanwhile, I'm not teaching you anything of how to do this on your own, just giving you instructions that you try to follow, but you can't follow them unless life stays exactly the same. So then reality hits in phase 2, right? And we start to get discouraged. The time starts to become scarce. All this time that we allotted to our workout and our walking and or whatever, we're starting to realize that, oh shit, like not only do I not have the time I thought I did, I'm not good at managing my time well enough to adhere to this copy paste program. Then you've got the third phase, the emotional friction, when the scale isn't moving as fast as it did. Because here's the thing that always happens. You start a new program, you drop, especially like keto or something super restrictive, you drop 5-10 pounds immediately. And you're like, oh, this is it. This works for me. You go online, you start telling your friends, hey, look, I'm doing this great new diet. It's called keto or paleo or ketovore or whatever the fuck. And I've already lost 5 pounds. This clearly was sent from God as the perfect diet because you're still in that new thing high, right? But then scale starts to slow down. You start to see some water retention, right? The self-doubt starts to creep in. Is this working for me? Maybe I should, you already start thinking about the next thing you're going to try.
It should be going faster.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is it was going fast. Now it should stay the same. And again, if you don't have any education or understanding around adaptation, you're going to make that same mistake. That's going to be the trigger that evokes the emotion that gets you to quit or seek another solution.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So all this is starting to wear off, and then you program hop. You stop what you were doing, you jump to the next thing. Oh, it must be my macros, new macro plan. Oh, let's take this TikTok advice. Let's go down the hormone rabbit hole.
It's cortisol. Now I have to fast.
Clearly,
now I have to take this supplement. Oh, it's my bloating. Oh, it's my stress. I've got to manage these things. And then you're like obsessed with your fitness. I've got to take these supplements. I can only eat these foods. I've got to drink this much water. I've got to fast for this much time. I can only eat 7 different foods, so I can't go out to eat anymore. And I've got to make sure I go to bed at a certain time. And then you have kids that are up sick and you're like, oh, fuck it. And then you start to blame everybody else. And it's like, it's not their fault. And it's not necessarily your fault. But the idea that you're going to fit a mold that wasn't made for you is the fallacy that we keep falling into, because you need something that is truly customizable. And then there's the skepticism around all of that when it's way cheaper to just buy a blueprint PDF online and think that that's going to solve the problem. But it's your fear of investing in something that can actually change it. And I understand that from a certain perspective, because there are many people that are just grifters in the fitness space, if I'm going to be candid. But do your research, build your discernment, have the conversations. Like, either way, it's just recognizing that what you are doing as far as seeking a solution, if it's always an ad and a woman that you know, and they're telling you about this at Pilates and this is what everybody's doing, that's what everybody else is doing. Okay? That doesn't mean that's what you need to be doing. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah. So the fifth and final phase is you quit, right? You miss a few workouts. Fuck it. I'm done. I couldn't do it perfectly. I'm not going to do it at all. I'm useless. I'm broken, whatever. Or as Kate said, blame everything else, right? For the lack of adherence when, as she said, you're trying to apply something that wasn't made for you. And the reality is, yes, there's overarching principles for body transformation.
The what,
right? Calorie deficit, high protein, strength training, right? That's the 4 pillars of change. No matter how you cut it, that has to happen. Okay. No matter what, everyone falls under that universal umbrella, energy balance, right? But the way that you apply it,
the how,
is completely unique to you. And that is one thing we pride ourselves on. There are no 2 women we work with that do this shit the same way. So that's kind of the cycle that people go through. Let's talk about the dark side of free information, because we talk to a lot of people who are like podcast obsessed, right? They listen to every podcast. They consume, and yet nothing is changing. Why is that?
So I want to lead with a fun fact.
Snapple fact.
Snapple fact for the day. Women, especially, you'll see this in marriages or relationships all the time. Women are gatherers. We gather information. We acquire it, and what do? We share it. We nudge, right? We want them to see what we're seeing, that we're putting in the effort. And a lot of this is actually from a lens of wanting to resolve something or build something. And you do the same thing with your fitness. If I just gather enough information, I'm gathering the lot of it all. The problem with your desire to gather this information is the information that you're gathering is not compatible. And so then you hear conflicting information, right? And then you're confused and overwhelmed because if you've done this many times, you don't want to make the same mistake. And so it comes from a good place, but inevitably you're still procrastinating. And you tell yourself, well, the next podcast or the next TikTok video or the next whatever it might be, right? That's going to give me more context and more nuance and more information. And that is the fallacy that we fall into. It feels good, right? We feel like we're learning when we do that, when we consume so much. It's like, I'm learning, I understand more. I just need to understand a little bit better. I need more information. Can you tell me more about the program? What about the workouts? And we just need what aboutisms. What about, more. And all that is doing, if you zoom out and actually observe yourself like a fly on the wall, as you've been thinking about doing something with your body, with your health, with your fitness for a very long time. Right? This is what we call in psychology, as far as stages of change, the pre-contemplation phase. I'm aware of a problem. I want a solution. I'm not ready to take action. So what do? I procrastinate by making myself feel like I'm being productive by consuming, because you tell yourself eventually I'm going to do something about this. And unfortunately for most people, eventually never comes until you hit rock bottom. And then because you can't make a decision around a big commitment, right, that feels too much for you outside of your perceived window of tolerance at that point, you start with something smaller. I'm just going to start with this program. I'm going to start with this diet. I'm going to start with this detox. I'm going to start with this pill. I'm going to start with this Pilates workout. I'm going to start with this group class. And again, starting somewhere is great, but those are not large enough commitments that will force behavior change. They are dopaminergic novelty spikes that are enticing because they're new, novel. The brain responds very positively to novelty. And so with that, you feel good, you get that motivational spike, but inevitably it either doesn't bring you, the expectation doesn't match reality. This is where we experience disappointment. And so instead of looking at how you're going about selecting these things, you jump on the next thing because there's somebody else who's trying to sell you something every time you open your phone. And you see people who look the way that you want to look. Now, probably most of them are AI anyways. Or if they weren't before, they were photoshopped. So like either way, you're comparing your normal healthy body or your desired healthy body to an unrealistic standard always. And so it's never enough. I digress, but the information overload, our brains are not wired, nor have they adapted to the current state of our reality. Meaning there is so much information and so much stuff and so much fear and so much madness in the world. Your brain doesn't know what to do with that stuff. And so we actually get paralyzed by over consuming information because we don't have time to actually think about what it is we're consuming. And because we're not thinking about it, we're not establishing critical thinking skills, which is why we're becoming more and more reactive as a culture and society emotionally to almost everything. And I say that because if you consume something, if you take anything away from this podcast and you're one of those intellectualizers who wants to consume the information, distill it down into your takeaways and apply it before you continue to consume anything else. Do something with it.
Yeah, if you're going to be an overconsumer rather than a doer, you're going to be a really smart fat person. So just to sum up what she just said, right? Problem number one is the dopamine hit from consuming information. Learning feels good, feels productive, but we're not actually doing anything with it, right? You've got problem number two, which is the conflicting advice. You open your phone, someone's saying, lift heavy, don't lift heavy. Do HIIT cardio, don't do HIIT cardio.
Eat
Fast.
protein, don't eat protein.
Yeah, protein's killing your kidneys. Oh, what about creatine? It's like, it is not, our brains are not designed to see that much content in such a short span, okay? So you freeze because you don't know what to do because everybody's saying something different. Doctors are arguing, because they have the appeal to authority. Doctors must know what they're talking about. And then you have another doctor.
Chiropractic doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. So so then you have problem number three. All the free advice online is generic. It's not contextual to you. And so if you try to take just bits of free information and apply it, it's never going to quite land because it's never going to be contextualized to your life the way you perceive how this should go. Your time constraints, your thinking errors, your blind spots. We all have them. You have them. and they're unique to the person next to you. Is your husband sitting next to you right now? No, you're in the car on your headphones? Okay. Well, anyway, problem number 4 is no accountability when you try to apply these things. So there's no course correction when you get a little bit off the path, right? So unbeknownst to you, you're trying to pursue fat loss and you're in a 1,000-calorie deficit thinking because you lost a lot of weight in the first week, that's going to be sustainable for you. But guess what? It won't, because it's too steep of a deficit. But you don't know that because no one's there to reel you in. What? Okay, now I've lost all the weight. Now I'm all saggy. I look like a popped balloon. How do I put lean tissue back on? You have no idea where to go with that because weight loss was just part of it. So now you start adding calories back in, but you don't know how many calories to add back in. And so you overeat and then you gain all the weight back. And now you're panicking because you just worked so hard to lose all the weight, but now you're gaining it back just as rapidly, if not more rapidly. And then how do we do this in a way that gives us the shape we want and gives us the body fat loss that we want and make it sustainable? Like that's where we're having this error because no one's there to guide you through it. What? Yeah. Sorry, I had a seizure. And then you have, so the information overload leads to inaction, right? Which is actually the only wrong thing you can do is nothing at all. But that's what we do when we're overloaded with information. We stay in indecision, that pre-contemplation phase, like Kate was describing there. I didn't even know that was a psychological thing, but that's cool. I've been using that term because I got it from you. So now we want to shift from problem to solution. Okay, so what is the solution, right? Because consistency isn't built through willpower, more discipline, trying harder.
Choice. Like at some point, and I mean this in the most compassionate way, and I'm saying this from a place of conviction, okay? Because I know some people like to tone police. I don't appreciate that. But at some point, you just have to choose. You have to choose who you're going to become. You have to choose your own standards. You have to choose how you're going to show up for yourself. You have to choose what you're going to prioritize in your life. You have to choose because you have one body, you have one life, you have one mind. Okay. And what you do or don't do in order to take care of that, like you would take care of your house or the new car that you want or the new clothes that you want to buy or the vacation that you want to take or whatever else that you're spending your time and effort and energy and resources on. If you're doing that at the cost of the quality of your own life, what does that stuff even mean? What is the point? So I say that because at some point we can sit here and we can go through the entire emotional landscape and all of the cognitive distortions that people experience and the pressures from the outside or the comparison trap we find ourselves in. And I'm not trying to diminish those things because they do contribute to that. But at the root of all of this, you have a choice. You can choose to do this the way that everybody else is doing it, like you've done it a dozen times before and doesn't work for you. Or you can say, I deserve to find something that is actually going to work for me, which means it has to be built for me. Not for the masses, but for me. And so just all of that, I know I kind of jumped ahead and just went for the jugular there, but you have a choice. Like you don't have to say, I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You choose what you put in your mouth every single day. You choose how often you move for the most part. If you work a 9 to 5 and you're pretty sedentary, get up and go to the bathroom. Make sure you bring a gallon of water or half a gallon of water, even 32 ounces is fine. Drink it at your desk. You're going to have to pee in an hour. You do that 6 times a day. You're going to get couple hundred steps, if nothing else, depending on how far away you are from the bathroom. But like, there are so many other things that you can do that does not require you to overhaul your circumstances. It just requires you to be more intentional with them. That's all you have to do. And that is a choice that everybody has the option to make. It's now whether or not you're willing to do that. That's totally up to you.
I'll just be real with you. Trying to do body transformation on your own is trying to do therapy on yourself when you're the patient. You have blind spots and you can't see those blind spots. That's why they're called blind spots. You can't see them. Only an objective third party can. It is not weakness to get guidance. It is actually strength. The old belief that you're going to have to discard is that it's weakness to ask for help. A lot of you think that. A lot of you think, I should know how to do this. I should do this. I know what to do. Cool. You're going to be sitting here saying you know what to do while that weight keeps piling up. We see it all the time. There are people who I talk to on a call and they just can't get out of this, paralysis of making a decision. It feels safer to stay in indecision. It's what they know. It's their comfort zone. It's their neighborhood that they hate, but they know their way around. And it's like, but if I make a decision, it's different and it's uncertain. I can't predict it. And so I'm just going to run that same old play. Then I talk to that same woman a year later when she finally does commit to us. And you know what she says? Holy shit, I should have done this a year ago because I gained 30 more pounds. I thought if I just tried harder, that this would work, but that's trying harder is not the answer.
It's just going to leave you exhausted and frustrated because it's not about trying harder. It's that the things that you're working hard at are the wrong things. And if you don't recognize that because you're brainwashed by social media or your insecurities or other bros that you run into are telling you what they're doing, so you think you need to do the same thing, like either way, that's the thing that's going to keep you stuck, burnt out, frustrated, and going, I guess it's just the way I am. It's just my body. It's my hormones, right? It's my genetics. I'm big boned or whatever else people say about themselves. It's like, even if there are certain elements of like, yes, there's a certain level of leanness we can do in a healthy manner. There's a certain level of lean body mass you can acquire genetically. Nobody is working hard enough to maximize that potential. And I'm going to say that for the majority of average people, right? Distribution curves, if you want to believe you're the exception, that's fine. You will be disappointed. Unless you're a professional athlete or a bodybuilder, and those people are on drugs anyways, like an average person who's working, who's married, who has children, who has enough stuff on their plate, there are many things that you can do, but we stress ourselves out and gives ourselves anxiety, and then we get in the comparison trap and we have low self-esteem, and then we feel inadequate. It's a vicious cycle. And you can choose I want to get off that train. Like you can get off of it and you'll be much better off if you do.
If you have decision fatigue, the best thing you can do is get support, because it shrinks the pool of decisions you can make, because you can outsource some of this discernment to someone who knows exactly what you should be doing and when to apply it, which is actually more important. The when is oftentimes more important than the what, because if we just play this along, the thing that you know what to do, but you just won't do it. Okay, cool. If you know what to do, then what we need to do is help you apply it at a rate that is within your window of tolerance so you can continue to apply it and build and compound over time and actually stay consistent when you meet that usual crossroads where you'd usually jump to the next program. The only way to unravel that belief that you need a different program or that nothing works for you, that you can't follow through, is evidence to the contrary. And the only way to get that is to have someone who can help you make decisions when before you would have made a decision that would not make you proud of yourself. We want to shift our identity to someone who, one, follows through on their word to themselves. I guarantee you follow through on your word to everyone else, your kids, your husband, people at work. Great. Excelling there, suffering in your health. And if you're suffering in your health, everything else will suffer eventually. So we actually need to make sure you follow through on your commitments to yourself. So self-integrity, number one. Two, build this thing from the ground up. Do not make commitments that you know you cannot complete. So we keep the commitments small, but we keep the completion high, so that what happens is you get this evidence that when you say you're going to do something, you do it, and you get the results that come with being consistent because you're following through on commitments. It may seem very tedious for somebody who needs instant gratification, but if you need instant gratification, you will forever suffer when it comes to pursuing body results. I promise you that, because it will never be as fast as you think it should. And the paradox is, once you accept that something's going to take longer than you think, it happens faster than you think it will. That's the weird paradox. Is it's the second you accept it's going to take longer than you think it should is the second it happens sooner than you think. Sounds weird, but it's absolutely true, because you start to value different things. You stop valuing rapid scale movement. You start valuing following through on your word. You start valuing strength. You start valuing consistency with your nutrition. You start valuing behaving in a way that makes you proud. You stop valuing all these dopaminergic short-term pursuits that just continuously leave you in pain, and you start valuing the things that bring you peace. That's the number one emotion women tell me they want to experience. I'm like, where do you want your life to be? What emotion would describe this ideal life of yours? Peace. Another one is freedom. You can only get peace and freedom by becoming someone who values this stuff so much that it maintains even when life is unpredictable and you get shook a little bit, because that's going to happen. Life is unpredictable. We've never worked with anyone ever who didn't have some kind of life event in the course of a year commitment. It's wild to think that during a year something wouldn't happen. It's going to. You have injury, you have sickness, you have loss. And if your values are strong enough and you have the skill to support those values and being consistent with these commitments, you will keep going and maintain steady Eddie even when life ebbs and flows.
I was just going to say we got a message from a client this morning about that exact thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did. She's going through a lot. Yeah, as many
And
of our
has
clients
been.
are. Yeah.
But the support from her coach, from myself and Katie and Mav and the team and the community, like it'll make or break a lot of things for you because you don't have any outside perspective and you don't have support. You don't have somebody who can tell you, yeah, that's the right thing. This is the what, this is how, and this is when, right? Because you won't get that from a blueprint or an ebook or an online whatever. Like, even as valuable as I like to believe our videos are, it's like I still don't talk to you. I still don't know you or your life or your ailments or your history or your relationship with food or exercise or injuries or health conditions, stressors. So without that information, we do the best that we can to provide as much information as possible around how to think about these things because it really is you're thinking about it the wrong way, which means you're applying the information the wrong way. And that's not your fault, by the way, because everybody's being misled these days. But at the same time, like without all of those things, it's incredibly difficult, if not almost impossible, for people to actually achieve the goal the way they want to achieve it. And the reason that that part is important is if you want to maintain it, the way you go about doing it is going to be a lifelong way of living. So if you're cutting out foods you actually love, if you're overriding social gatherings that mean something to you, if you're running yourself into the ground with an amount of exercise that you can't possibly sustain long term, stop doing that. You're going to end up losing the weight if you do, either developing some type of coping mechanism that's not great through the process because it's so rigid. And then the pendulum's going to swing and you're going to regain it back. And you're going to think, well, that worked last time, because that's what people tell themselves. That worked last time, so I'm going to do it again. And your body's not going to respond the way that it did the first time. That's not because your body's broken. That's because the approach is totally wrong. And I hate to see that for people. But as much as you may be in denial about needing people, we all need people. I need people. He needs people. You need people. And you need competent people when it comes to solving a specific problem. Allow yourself to find that.
You're watching this and you're like, huh, some of the stuff they said was kind of hard to hear, but they're right. I like how genuine they are and direct and blunt about this, and they seem to be, you know, genuine in their care. What I invite you to do is, if you're interested in how we do this, if you're curious about how we make this happen for women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 40s, married, not married, 4 kids, 5 kids, 100 pounds to lose, 150 pounds to lose, 200 pounds to lose, I'm going to link the program overview right here. That overview will tell you everything you need to know about what we do. It's just me and Kate on a couch talking about the ins and outs of our program. It's been here for over a year and a half, I think, but that'll give you the best idea. Now, what I invite you to do is not to consume that information and do nothing with it. I invite you to make a choice. The link to apply is directly under that video. I'll put it under this one as well. But before applying, I highly recommend you watch that overview to make sure this is what you actually want. Make sure it's something you're interested in, because if you're not interested, that'll answer that for you, right? And you won't waste your time or ours. But if you are and it sounds like what you're looking for, click that link. Applying super simple, takes like 5 minutes. We'll get on a call, you and I, and we'll talk about how we'll design this for you. Like I said, contextual to your life so that you can actually do this because it's designed for you. That's not fluff. Everything we do is based on the human in front of us. So check that out. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you guys soon.
Bye-bye.